Hello everyone! It's been a while, but I'm happy to be back, and today the video is very exciting because I'm going to talk to you about the things that I've learned after becoming a polyglot. And all of these things I've learned with time, experience, based on many different things like being a teacher, learning obviously a few languages, studying linguistics, and just my general interest in personal development and improving results and efficiency and things like that. So I hope you will find it useful, and let's jump right in. So the first thing that I think is very important when you learn a new language is to learn how to think in the language. And in my opinion, the first step is to accept that other languages aren't weird or they do not lack logic. Because a lot of my students say, oh, that doesn't make sense, or that's weird, etc, etc. But it's not weird, it's just that the other language or the other languages work differently, and you have to get used to it and accept it. This means that you can't use your native language as a point of reference to what's normal or logical when it comes to other languages, because the logic behind each language is just different. Another thing that I think is very important is to not assume how things are said or phrased in the other language. And this is even more important the more different your target language is from your native language. As I just said, each language will have its logic, and it's just about getting used to the fact that you can't just translate things literally. And sometimes a phrase that exists, let's say, in English will not necessarily exist in Japanese, or maybe it will be said differently. And it's all about getting used to that and not just thinking, if we say that in English, then we can say this in Japanese or whatever. Because languages are complex, there's lots of influences from the culture, the history, and many things that would be too long for me to sort of go through in this video. But one way to fix it or to address this issue is to always have native speakers to ask questions about how to phrase things. I mean, there's different ways to go about it, but I think that's the one I prefer the most. Because if you have a native speaker, you can always ask them, can you say this? Does that make sense? Does that sound natural? Etc, etc. But of course, watching lots of content or reading lots of content will also help you having this instinct when it comes to phrasing things or expressing ideas or concepts in the target language. The second thing that I've learned is a little bit cliche, but I'm going to try to add a twist to it, is that you need to have good reasons to learn the language. And good reasons are very subjective. There's not one person that can tell you what's a good reason to learn a language. For example, for me, I learned English because I wanted to watch TV shows and films without subtitles, and my main reason wasn't originally to speak English, but really just to be able to consume content in English and understand it. Obviously, wanting to speak English came later. Another example for me, Spanish, was because when I was younger, I used to spend a lot of time in Spain, and I had also Spanish people in my family circle, so that gave me motivation because I was already exposed to the culture and I love Spanish culture, so that gave me a strong reason. A last example is for Japanese. So I didn't learn Japanese because I wanted to watch anime without subtitles, but the main reason was more because of linguistic curiosity, because Japanese is so different from other languages that I was just like, yes, I want a challenge. And I had learned only Latin-based languages before, so I thought that Japanese would be an interesting challenge. I mean, I did learn English, which is not Latin, but you see what I mean. Essentially, the main takeaway from this is that your own good reason for learning a language is not necessarily someone else's good reason, and you have to find something that resonates with you. And there's no dumb reasons to learn a language, I don't think. As long as it's something that is important to you and you can resonate with it, I think is very important, then you're good to go. And that leads me to my next point, which is motivation. Having good reasons to learn a language and being motivated is quite linked, but there's more to motivation than just having good reasons, because I feel like in our society we understand motivation the wrong way. We think that we can only achieve things if we're motivated, but you can find lots of evidence against it in your life. In my case, for example, writing my MA dissertation was a pain in the neck, and there's so many things that I wish I could have done instead. Another example is my PGCE, my teaching degree, which was really hard, but I didn't give up even though I was not motivated to complete it. So I'm sure you can find lots of similar examples in your life, maybe having to go to work every day when you're not motivated, having to go to social gatherings when you don't want to, etc, etc. I mean, I'm sure everyone can sort of resonate with that. But what I'm trying to get at is that motivation is not always necessary for you to achieve things. And that's really important because when it comes to language learning, there are days where you will be extremely motivated and others you won't be motivated. And that's not a reason for you not to do language learning. And I'm not saying you should always go against your motivation, but more often than not, when we're not motivated, if we actually sort of find it in ourselves to have the strength to actually do some language learning, we actually realize that we could do it. It's just our brain that was feeling a bit lazy and didn't want to do it, but it doesn't mean we can't. I hope that makes sense. Now, yes, if you're never motivated, then there's something wrong, and that means that maybe the language you're learning or language learning in general might not be something that's that important for you as you thought it was. But if your lack of motivation is only occasional or for short periods of time, but you still have times where you feel motivated, then it can just be about you having to work against that resistance. And you will see that the more you do it, the easier it'll get. And you'll be happy you've done it afterwards. My fourth point, or maybe the fifth, I think it's fourth, is to get used to getting out of your comfort zone with that language. It's really important and such a fulfilling experience to always challenge your boundaries or what you think is uncomfortable for you. So that means different things for different people. I'm originally a very shy person, and I know people don't believe me when I say that, but when I was a kid, just going to the bakery to buy bread was terrifying. But it's actually something that I worked on a lot, you know, challenging myself to do something that was a little bit uncomfortable, but doing those little things that felt uncomfortable for me on a daily basis or regularly really helped me to expand my comfort zone, because comfort zone is not something that's fixed, it's something that you can actually expand. And I think that's quite a useful way of looking at it. And this will mean different things for different people. It doesn't matter if your comfort zone is really small like this. It just means that you will have to, you know, go easy and do it gradually. For example, it could be, you know, talking to people and asking your way around a place in your target language. It could be ordering food in a restaurant, and that could be quite nerve-wracking if you're not that proficient in the language. I mean, I can speak from experience with Japanese. Or it could be just participating in group activities in your target language. It really depends, but I think it's really important to sort of challenge yourself. Don't stay too much in your comfort zone for too long, because otherwise you will limit your possibilities and you will limit your progress in your target language. And what if you make a fool out of yourself or you embarrass yourself in one way or another? Well, that'll just give you a great story to tell. And the last point I wanted to raise in this video is frustration. Frustration, our best friend, right? So frustration is something that I see a lot in myself, but also amongst my students, because I teach French, and sometimes they just think like they're not making progress or it's not going as fast as they wish it did. And I've got two pieces of news for you. The first one is a good one, and the second one, not so good. The bad one is that you will always feel frustrated. There's never going to be a time where you are never frustrated in terms of your level. I am C2 in English, as you can tell, I'm fluent in English, but there's still times where I beat myself up and think, I'm not good enough, I should be better. I still make silly mistakes, I still can't pronounce certain words, and I should know better, blah, 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 blah. But actually, I just realized that it doesn't matter what your level is. It's not about if I could do this, I wouldn't feel frustrated. You will always find something frustrating. It really doesn't matter what your level is in the language. Your brain will always find reasons to beat yourself up over anything. And it really is weird. And I don't know why our brains do it, but they do it. So it's just about accepting it and just welcoming it. And sometimes I even make fun of my own frustration. I think, oh, I'm frustrated today. Aww. And that really helps me with not making frustration a big deal, because if I just take it as something that's normal and almost funny in a way, that it loses its power, essentially. And now what's the good news? So the good news about frustration might be that if you're frustrated about something, then maybe it means that you need to work on it. And that's good, because that means that it gives yourself small objectives or small things to achieve. I mean, of course, a good goal is not, you know, I want to be fluent now, but it's going to be something like, oh, I don't know that word, that's annoying, so I can learn that word. Or, oh, I don't know how to conjugate verbs in that tense, so maybe it could be about reviewing it, etc., etc. But just so you know, everyone experiences frustration, you're not the only one, and it's okay. Alright, that's it for this video. There's many other things I could have mentioned, like, you know, the importance of maintaining your language, having fun, etc. But I think that's enough for today, and I hope you have enjoyed this video. And if you have, please subscribe, make sure you put a thumbs up, and I will see you later. Bye!